They got the mustard out. Except for bunnies. And welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my review for Netflix's original series, Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. So Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance is a prequel, so you don't have to have seen the movie, although if you have seen the movie then you'll remember who's who in the zoo. It will remind you of certain species like the Skeksis and just how the world rolls, but don't worry if you haven't seen it, because this is all set before, and throughout the 10 episodes you get to see a little bit of the film through kind of premonitions, through looking at this amazing stone. But before I get into all that, there won't be any spoilers in this review. I might do a spoiler review, let me know in the comments below if you would like that, but for now, let's jump into the review. So the Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance is set in the land of Thurs. A young guard discovers a terrible secret about the Skeksis overlords who control the planet and its powerful crystal of truth. Three main Gelfling discover the horrifying secret behind the Skeksis' power, and they set out to ignite the fires of rebellion and save their world. I recently watched the original Dark Crystal, and I was surprised how well it still handles itself, how well it looks. It is dated, but the puppeteers and the animators did such an amazing job to create a world that was so immersive that if you go back and watch it now, you'll still be immersed into that world. But one of the things I was really worried about, and one of the things I'm sure that if you are a fan of the original film, you'd be worried whether they're just going to go the CG route or whether it's just not going to be the same thing. Because can you do puppets and have it in our society now? Will people relate to it as much? And I think there is a bit of concern to be had with that, and I can understand your worry. But for me, I thought these 10 episodes were fantastic. So in 2017, Jim Henson's studio began working on the Puppeteers, and obviously with what they have available to them now, it's much better than what they had back in the 80s. And then they transported the puppets to be worked on in London, where they can fill the rest of the story out with the CG and the sets, and everything would come together. And so now what we have is an amalgamation of CG and puppeteers, and they've taken the puppeteers and they've kind of condensed the way they used to control them. Instead of it taking 4 to control certain puppets, now it takes 2, and they're using a Wii controller which is modified, and it only takes 2 people to control certain puppets, so it's much easier. I wouldn't say it's easy to do their job, but it's much easier. There are many champions of this series that make this series so good, but I think before I carry on about how I felt about it in the storyline, I just want to give a mention to the puppeteers, because I feel like they will be overlooked. There is, of course, a cornucopia of puppeteers, but each of the main characters had their own puppeteers, and I have to say they've done a fantastic job at bringing their characters to life. Very quickly, even within the first episode, I forgot that I was watching puppets. They became characters, they became real. Of course, this amalgamation is due to everything that works within this series, which leads me to everything I love about this series. Very quickly, within the first episode, you are taken on a journey. The first episode is over an hour long, and it establishes this world of Thrar again. If you know Thrar from the original world, it was so vibrant, with little monsters to large monsters to plants that are just amazing. The best frame of reference I can take you on to kind of immerse yourself in this world or visualize it, if you took Neverending Story and you took the visual spectacular ride that was Avatar, regardless of what you think of Avatar, visually it looked amazing. So if you took bits of that and then put it in a mixture of kind of Neverending Story and Puppeteers, mixed it obviously with the original animation or animatronics from the Dark Crystal, and that's kind of what you have here. Very quickly I was immersed into this series and the characters, but this series wouldn't be any good if it wasn't for the storyline, and I think the storyline is fantastic. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on in the world of Thra. The themes they tackle, there is a racism, so even within the Gelfling you have different races, you have different races of Gelflings, and there's power struggles within the good guys and the bad guys, and I was just amazed at how in-depth they went into the story. And obviously you got your hero journey, which I think is great. One of the best things about adventures of these sorts is when they establish the world, but then they set you off going on this journey, which is why I think stories like The Goonies and Never-Ending Story and Flight of a Navigator work so well. I think that's partly why Stranger Things, especially season 3, works so well, because they really there's this journey that the characters go on. And so as you go on the journey, the characters' arcs are developed, the bad guys' arcs are developed, and the story develops. So you have this kind of intertwining of the themes and the story as you go on these episodes and journey. Occasionally, your protagonist and the hero team that come together go in their separate journeys, but everything comes to a nice formation at the end in the 10th episode, where it reveals itself to be a kind of this main battle.
What is the darkening?
I think that they're probably trying to do more seasons. I don't see how it connects directly up to the film, even though it is a prequel. I think they've left themselves space to do more if they wanted to. Although the series does give light to a lot of the questions you probably had in the film, or the questions you never knew to ask about how certain creatures came into being and how certain characters got to where they are in the Dark Crystal. I don't want to go into that because that will definitely be plot spoilers, but there were a number of times when I went, oh, that's how that happens. Of course, the storylines and the magic of how it looks wouldn't be as good if it wasn't for the actors, and Netflix has spared no expense at bringing some amazing actors. I kind of don't want to go through all the names because there are some that you will just hear within your ears and you go, I recognize them. But I think the actors that have been chosen for their roles have been chosen so well that you often forget that they're someone that you know, but rather become the character that you are seeing on screen. And that is a job really well done, because so now what you have is puppeteers at their best, creating a character, helping them come to life, voice actors or actors voicing these characters, and so you have this mix of talent that just really works well on screen. And then you mix in the CG, and that just brings your characters to life. So we've got this hero journey, this arc story that flows really well in edit and in pacing, and then you have your characters that are developed well, puppeteered well, and look great in between the amalgamation of the CG and the puppets. And so what you have is a near perfect story, some great adventure. I have seen some reviewers saying that this is totally family friendly. I would give a word of warning. I think it is a family orientated series, but probably not for the very young. There are some really dark themes in here. There's prolonged torture. Although they're animated puppets, when you get into further episodes and you've come to enjoy those characters, and then you're seeing certain ones get hurt in torturous ways, or it has a very dark theme, I would say really youngsters, probably like from the 5 to 8, depending on what you allow your child to see, might find this a bit dark. There were times when I was watching certain episodes I went, wow, that's dark. I audibly said it out loud because I caught myself going, well, I wasn't expecting to see that on screen. And when there's blood, it's not normal blood because it's you know, they're different beings to us, but you get the idea, you understand what is happening. So I couldn't really do a review on this without talking about the sound design, the score. Join me! And the kind of general tone of the themes of the music that they put inside this series, because it's one of the best I've seen. But more than that, the sound and the score are characters of their own. They're not thrust into your face. It doesn't feel like you're hearing the sound blasting in between scenes, and it doesn't feel like the series is being carried by the sound. But it definitely does have a theme interwoven in with the editing. It really adds value to this series. It's not thrust in your ears, but it's just edited so well. I found myself really enjoying the score. I want to get the score. I think it's one of the best I've heard. On IMDb, if you look up Daniel Pemberton and Samuel Sim, you'll understand the caliber that Netflix have brought to this. I think Netflix has done well. Not only have they spent money on great composers, but the voice casting this is phenomenal. We are eternal! Like I mentioned earlier, Sigourney Weaver, Mark Hamill. I don't really want to talk about any more of them because I want you to experience the voice acting and everything as a whole in one. And sometimes when you come with kind of predisposed ideas of what that character brings with their voice because you know it so well, then that might mar your experience of it. So I'm not going to mention any others, but you will recognize Mark Hamill's. He's got such a clear voice that is easy recognizable. But between the voice acting and the editing, the score, which is a character of its own, and the puppeteering, so the puppeteers are fantastic. The CG, The best thing apart from all of that, all of those amazing things, is the sets and the design, the look of it, because it really gives an air of adventure. Not since movies like Lord of the Rings and Neverending Story and Goonies, Flight of the Navigators, all of those, not since those have I felt like I've gone on an adventure as much as this one. And I think this just proves the case that fantasy can be done well. Unfortunately, sometimes that's not the case and it falls flat. There's just too many moving parts. But because Netflix have given time, this is a project that's been going on for a while, although they only started working on it in 2017. Jim Henson's studio has been working on this idea and toying with it for years, and finally Netflix have given budget and the cast and the people to make something that looks amazing. And I think we'll probably get 2 or 3 more seasons. I don't know how many more they want to fund. It depends on whether this is well received. I can't see why not. We seem to be spoiled with fantasy at the moment. On one hand, we've got Carnival Row, which is adult fantasy. On the other hand, we've got this, Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which I think is great for the family. Mostly. But in my opinion...
In your opinion?
Yes, in my opinion.
I think this is one of the best fantasy series I've seen, especially for TV. It's one of Netflix's flag titles for now. I urge everybody to watch this. If you enjoy fantasy at all, you'll enjoy this. If you enjoy just the skill that we get in a series for taking a chance on puppeteering, how great is that? Like, this is something that we don't see now. Kind of taking old school mechanics, old school stuff that is kind of nostalgic in a way, and bringing that into this age, and then mixing that's brilliant to me. And I can't wait to see what else they'll do in further seasons. Let me know in the comments below whether you've enjoyed this, whether you're highly anticipating it like a few of my friends. Are you a fan of the original film? Are you nervous? I can understand you being somewhat nervous. I think great respect has been shown here. I'm going to give this series an A+ because I think it deserves it. I can't really fault it. I think if you get into the nitty-gritties of the kind of creature design from the original, and you don't like what the creatures are now, then you're kind of missing the point, because some of those creatures from this series will turn into those creatures at a later date. They're kind of showing a character arc, or a creature arc almost, with the story and hero design of everything that goes along the story. You're getting a creature arc. It nods towards those things that the film later becomes. At the same time, I don't think you need to have seen this film. This series is its own 10 hours of glorious fantasy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you like my review and you want more content behind the scenes and short films and that kind of thing, then do hit that join button. I don't do Patreon, but I do membership here on YouTube. I like to keep everything contained within the shell of YouTube if I can. Thank you so much for supporting and watching. Do chat to me in the comments below. But most of all, until next time, remember, live long and choose them.